Hello, my name is Jeremy Barnes, and today I'm going to do a review for the last four episodes of Agatha All Along. If you want to hear my thoughts about the show overall from the beginning, check out my mid-season review, where I go into episodes 1 through 5. And then in this video, I'm going to pick up from where that video left off and go into the rest of the season. Um, so, just before I start, a real quick recap of my thoughts about episode 5, which was the very midpoint of the show. That was the first episode that really hooked me into the show. Before that, I was liking it, but not loving it. But that episode, when we got the reveal of the teen being Billy Maximoff and Wiccan, the son of the Scarlet Witch, with his blue crown, which looked very similar to Wanda's Scarlet Witch crown. That's like kind of when I was really into it, and even the stuff before that with the Halloween Exorcist trial with Agatha and her mom returning as a ghost, and us hearing Nicholas's voice for the first time, Agatha's son. All that was cool, and a little bit of the kind of witch flying and the Salem Seven in that episode was really cool as well. Um, So episode 6 picks up by kind of giving us the backstory of how Billy got to the road and where he had that crown already. Because in the beginning of the show, we expected that he didn't have any powers yet and that he would get some on the road, but we find out he actually had it the whole time. Um, and it was nice to see at the beginning of episode 6 the Kaplan's Jewish culture, which I didn't know about. Previously. I had never heard about that part of Billy Kaplan from the comics. So he was having a bar mitzvah while the kind of final battle of Westview was happening in the original WandaVision show. Um, and it was unexpected for me that Billy would have transferred into a new body at this point rather than at the point that the Scarlet Witch died, the Multiverse of Madness, which is what I was originally expecting. Um, so it kind of all makes sense when we see that Lilia was actually the witch who cast the sigil on um, originally William Kaplan before he even becomes Billy Maximoff. So that was interesting, and it explains why Wanda didn't know that Billy was still around after she closed the hex over Westview, because the hex was over him. So as soon as she kind of let her world down, he was invisible even to Wanda herself. We see like that he has a car crash on the way home, and as Wanda's shutting down the hex, Billy's soul kind of goes into the dead body of William Kaplan, and he kind of takes over and starts kind of figuring out who William Kaplan was with his parents and all that. And it's interesting that he actually already was interested in witchcraft and stuff like that. So it was kind of a perfect match. And then we see that over the 3 years, Billy has been kind of gathering information about like Westview, what happened there, to try to kind of piece his life together. Um, and he comes across somebody online that was a resident of Westview that kind of experienced the events. So he learns some more from him, and it ends up being Ralph Boner from WandaVision, Evan Peters' character who served as the Pietro of Wanda's sitcom reality. Um, and I feel like the fact that he even came back at all makes me even more confident there's going to be a bigger reveal for him. And I think if that is the case, we're going to get it the next time we see him, in his next appearance. And my theory ever since WandaVision, and it's kind of stayed true, is that Ralph Boner is actually Mephisto. or at the very least, an agent working for Mephisto. And a new theory that I have from this show is that Ralph Boner was actually leaving Westview in the truck that was on the wrong side of the road when Rebecca Kaplan, William's mom, crashed the car, killing him. So it was all kind of his fault, and he was kind of the orchestrator of the whole thing. And there's some things in this show that kind of don't really kind of tie over from WandaVision, but there are also some gaps where some things that were kind of absent here could be explained later on to kind of fill in those like missing pieces. Um, and I might go into that a little bit more once we get closer to the end, like the last couple episodes. Um, the only thing about episode 6 that I didn't really like was seeing episode 1 from Billy's perspective. Like I thought it was cool, but I feel like it kind of wasted time. Like we didn't really need to see that. The only thing that I did like seeing kind of from the other perspective that we didn't get to see before is like the beginning of episode 2, where we see or we get to actually hear what Billy was saying when he was introducing himself to Agatha. And first he says, I'm William Kaplan. And then she's like, come again, because she didn't hear the first time because of the sigil. And then he repeats, but like he doesn't know that she can't hear him. So he says who he actually believes himself to be, which is Billy Maximoff. And I thought that was really cool the way that they kind of edited and cut that together. The other downside I would say to episode 6 is that I thought there would have been more to the present day scene once we got through all of the kind of recap and the backstory. I thought we would have kind of saw where Rio went because she just disappeared at the end of episode 5. She never came out of the previous trial with everybody else, but we don't get that until episode 8. So that was kind of an interesting choice. Um, but overall, I still liked episode 6. It was a bit of a dip for me from episode 5, but it was still a pretty cool episode, kind of getting some of those puzzle pieces in there. And then episode 7, at first, I was honestly kind of disappointed that the episode didn't really have anything to do with the Wizard of Oz aspect that they were kind of teasing in the trailers, because I thought that was gonna be the whole like kind of point of the trial. Lilia kind of dealing with her kind of disdain for pop culture's representation of witches, but it didn't really end up being that. That was kind of just a costuming detail, whereas the trial itself was actually about the tarot cards, the tarot reading, and her ability to kind of see people's lives throughout time, past and future. Um, and afterward, like thinking about it and kind of seeing it a few times through other people's reaction videos of the episode, um, I've like accepted that that's what it was, and I've been able to kind of like put that small little thing aside, and I think it works really well for what it was, and it was really cool with the editing, the the way that they sequenced the events of the episode, where it kind of worked itself backwards, and we got to see kind of from Lily's perspective how her life was kind of scrambled around. Um, and Lilia's journey was a beautiful embrace of death, and I thought it was a beautiful journey that she got, and her ending that she got at the end of the episode. And then speaking of death, the reveal of Rio finally officially as death was great. How it kind of tied to that original first kind of um, flashback that Lilia saw in episode 3 in the first trial, where she saw like literally the personification of death, which is actually the only time that we saw a fully skulled version of Rio as death. When she took the maestra that we end up seeing as part of her kind of journey between the two timelines, her past as a kid and her present as a dying witch. Um, And at first, I actually didn't love the design that we saw in the episode 7 version of Death. But I think it's since grown on me, especially with the finale, where we get a kind of a better look at it. I actually do think it looks pretty cool with the eyes still being visible, like little literal eyeballs still in there, and kind of the top of Aubrey Plaza's head, where the bottom is the only part that's actually skeletal. Um, it does look pretty cool actually, so I fuck with it for sure. Um, I would say even though episode 7 was really damn good, and I think I've kind of appreciated it more and more the kind of more time that has passed. There was still kind of one big disappointment, which is probably the biggest disappointment of the entire show. And it's that the Salem 7 were never fully utilized, in my opinion. And it kind of sucks that they never had a true confrontation with Agatha, who they were kind of trying to get revenge on for killing their parents, which is what happened in the flashback that we saw of Agatha in WandaVision. I think it was episode at the beginning of episode 8 when she's kind of telling and revealing herself to Wanda. Um, she killed her coven that her mom was kind of like the head of, and I guess each of those members had a child that ends up becoming the Salem Seven. But they're just done. Like Lilia sacrifices herself, killing all of them, and that's all we see of them. So I feel like we didn't really get to see anything substantial with them. So that was like the one thing I was a little bit kind of disappointed by in the episode and in the whole show. Um, After the fact, though, I would say they didn't really matter that much. So like I didn't. It's not a huge thing, but the fact that they were in there at all was kind of pointless. I feel like because they didn't really do anything with them. So if they were never in there to begin with, I don't think we would have necessarily been missing anything. But because they had them in there, they should have done something with them. So that's kind of my thoughts about that. Um, but now we're moving into the two-part finale. Episode 8 I thought was a great finale episode, and it was kind of like the real finale. And it was weird that it was not the last episode, episode 9. But I thought it was really cool the way that they did it, and I think it kind of did make sense for the story. Um, but the other weird thing about episode 8 was that it went by actually like really slow. Like if it felt a lot slower than the other episodes in terms of pacing. But I feel like it wasn't a detriment to the episode. I think the pace kind of worked to a great emotional effect for the episode because we got to kind of like really connect to each character that was still there on a like deeper emotional level. I feel like than we might have been able to before. Aside from Lilia in episode 7, um, the moment that Jennifer gets her power back was a really powerful moment, I think. And then getting to see her get those powers and then leave was really cool. The moment between Agatha and Billy kind of giving Billy what he wanted out of the road was also really powerful. Seeing like him looking for Tommy's soul in the ether, that was really cool. It reminded me of the effect of Cerebro when Professor X looks for mutants and then he like finds a boy that's drowning. The visualization of that kind of event was really powerful. And then like the end where he just like disappears and then it's just left with Agatha there mourning her son. The way that she says that line, like after Billy asks, "Am I killing this boy so that my brother could live?" And she's like, "No. Sometimes boys die. Like it just happens." And in this case, that's her kind of thought process behind it. Like this boy was gonna die no matter what. You're just giving him a second life, the body a second life with Tommy, who Tommy's also getting a second life. And it's kind of funny now because Tommy originally in WandaVision was older than Billy by like a minute or two, but now that Billy has lived 3 years in William Kaplan's body, he's technically now the older sibling. So that's kind of funny. That was just a side note. After Agatha gets out, finally, when she plants the little seed of the flower that she's had, I think since she was super young, um, which that effect was really cool. And we see the fight between her and Rio. Wiccan comes in to help her because she's getting her ass kicked. And Wiccan's suit reveal was super fucking cool. I really fuck with his suit. Um, but then because she's fighting death, she eventually realizes that it's a fight that she can't win, and she ends up giving herself over. And that actual like literal kiss of death was poetic and really beautiful, the way that they shot it and the effects of it and everything. And then like Agatha actually falling to her death really kind of slowly, and then immediately decaying and like creating new life with all these mushrooms and flowers was like really cool. The entire special effects of this episode was crazy. And then we see Billy going home in a similar way to like how Wanda was leaving Westview with the hood and all that. And then he's at the end figuring out that like holy shit, did I create the fucking rope? And then he hears some like laughing in the background, and he turns, and there's that like jump scare, which we don't see what he sees, but we hear his reaction, and that was kind of a funny ending to the episode. But it was a cool cliffhanger because you're like, what the fuck? Like, how is there still a whole nother episode, and what are they gonna show? Like, what's gonna happen? Um, so I really liked episode 8 a lot. So now we're on to episode 9. And before even watching episode 8, I already saw like from the drop down menu of the episode list of the show that episode 9 was gonna kind of be like an episode 1 and be kind of a um, kind of backstory origin for Agatha. So I already kind of had some expectation of what we were gonna see in this episode. But it still was like kind of a crazy experience that it still kind of played out in a different way from what I was expecting, maybe. But man, it was fucking sad, and I didn't think it was gonna be that sad. Kind of watching it the first time, I thought I might have cried by the end of it. Luckily, I didn't, but it was still pretty sad, and we saw a little glimpse of that, like I said in episode 8, when Agatha's by herself, still in the trial, thinking about Nikki, Nicholas Scratcher's son. Um, but I think the coolest thing about episode 9 was that it was cool seeing that the Witch's Road was always a con. Um, and it was kind of a deal I think that Agatha made with Rio. Because she gives birth at the beginning of the episode to her son, and he just dies like immediately in childbirth. But it seems like Agatha already had some sort of relationship with death, so that might kind of go back to her days in Salem, when she's kind of first accused of practicing dark magic, and how it's like something that her mom Evanora and those witches were against. Um, and we don't know how Nicholas is like created. We don't know like if he has another parent, and if so, who it is. But it seems like there was something there already. So she kind of begs, Agatha begs Rio like to not take her son away, and it seems like the deal that they make is that she has to keep feeding her souls of other witches in order to keep Nicholas alive, and that's why she kind of starts this like witch's road, which actually starts with Nicholas just singing a song on his own, but then they kind of turn it into this con of like giving witches hope for this kind of traveler's path to gain something that they're missing, but it's really just for Rio to kill them, giving their souls to death and their power to keep her son alive, basically. Um, and it doesn't become real until Billy manifests it, like how his mom Wanda manifested her home life with Vision in the show WandaVision, her sitcom reality, and it's because he has like a similar power to her, and he kind of imagined it and studied some of the kind of lore of witches, witchcraft, and Agatha herself. So he kind of makes it real with all of that, and that's kind of crazy, but it's cool that it kind of ties into Wanda in that way, and in a way, he's possibly even more powerful because he kind of created a whole pocket reality, whereas Wanda just kind of transferred matter from one thing into something else. The only thing that she like literally created from scratch were her kids, um, which that actually is really crazy too, because she created these souls um, that we see like are real living souls in this show. But Billy creates like a whole actual new realm. So that is also crazy, and maybe he has the potential to create life as well. We don't know for sure, and maybe we'll see sometime in the future if that is possible. But I will say just because we didn't get to see the actual origin of Agatha and Rio's relationship, that would be the one thing that I was kind of like missing in the moment of watching the show or the episode. I wasn't really thinking about it, but after the fact, I'm like, damn, like we should have gotten more of that, and I thought we were gonna get that, and I thought we were gonna see that taking place before we saw the flashback from WandaVision in Salem, Massachusetts. And I feel like that whole timeline was weird. Like I thought it was weird that this happened after Salem. Because I thought we were gonna get to kind of see where Agatha's kind of darkness came from, and it has to have something to do with the Darkhold and however she acquired the Darkhold. Um, and I don't know if death is necessarily tied to that, or if it was something else that kind of got that in her hands. But I don't know if she's killed any other witches before the events of that scene in WandaVision. So the actual timeline of like Agatha's events from what we've seen of her life in the MCU so far now, the earliest thing was the Salem witch trials, which happened in 1693, and in that trial, she's put on trial by her own coven, led by her mom, Evanora Harkness, accusing her of practicing the dark arts, and her punishment for it is death. So that's when they all blast her, but she already has the power to kind of take um, other witches' powers, and that's what happens. She kills all the members of her coven, uh, finishing off her mom last, and she takes her mom's brooch, which she ends up using later on in 1750. 1756 when Nicholas dies. So he's born in 1750, but he's born dead, and then she makes his deal with Rio, um, where his life is extended for 6 years. But then when he dies, she takes a locket of his hair and keeps it inside. And ever since then, she always keeps that brooch on her. Who knows what her mom had before Agatha got it, but we find out in episode 8, before Jen gets her powers back, that it was actually Agatha who bound her. So it wasn't somebody, just some normal human, the guy who was like trying to drown Jen. It was Agatha who took her power away, and because she was powerless, she was kind of vulnerable to this guy's attack when he tried to drown her. And Jennifer says that that was like 100 years, and the present day of the MCU is 2026. So that puts that event at like around 1926. Um, and then we jump forward to closer to modern times when Agatha meets the Scarlet Witch, which takes place in 2023 in Westview. And then 3 years later, after Tommy is kind of introduced, I mean, not Tommy, Billy, Billy Kaplan, we get Agatha traveling down the first real Witches Road with this teen in the year 2026. And this is the last year of Agatha Harkness's life. As we see, she dies at the end of episode 8. And now she lives on as a witch who isn't ready to face her dead son. After all the witches that she's killed throughout the years, she can't face like what he sees of her, because he obviously got tired of it, as we saw, and that's kind of what leads to his death, I think, because it's the first time that night that Agatha doesn't take any witches, and that's when he goes. And I also like the ghost Agatha's design. It was a really cool design, and the effect of the ghosts, both Avenora and Agatha, were cool in episode 5 and episode 9. Um, so I was really pleased with the show, how it all turned out. Um, Now before I go, I'm just gonna give like a couple of theories. I don't really have any like super in-depth things to talk about like I did with WandaVision, but I do have some things that I'm kind of like looking forward to, and some theories I have for the future in this kind of realm of the MCU. So the first thing is obviously at the end, Billy and Agatha kind of go on a new adventure to kind of find Tommy wherever his soul went into the body of this other kid. Um, so after Billy reunites with Tommy, I think they're gonna find and resurrect their Westview mother, Wanda, and I think that could possibly happen in a Young Avengers project, whether that's a movie or a TV show. We'll have to wait and see. But it will probably adapt the Children's Crusade comic storyline. Um, so we'll see exactly how that plays out. But afterward, I think that Wanda is gonna actually start the new world of the MCU after Secret Wars finishes. So instead of destroying the multiverse like what was prophesized in the Dark Hall, according to Agatha Harkness at the end of WandaVision, I think Wanda's actually gonna save the multiverse by creating one single timeline out of all the strands of the rest, um, to reboot the MCU going forward. And I think she's gonna transfer over to the new world, as well as her two sons, Tommy and Billy, and maybe their android father Vision, and who knows what else and who else. Um, but those are the kind of only concrete theories that I have going so far. Besides, I guess for Mephisto, who is rumored to appear in Ironheart, which is coming out next year, 2025, and he might be tied to the Hood and be kind of the source of power of the Hood, who's a mystical character who's going to be kind of helping and then maybe eventually facing Riri Williams as Ironheart in that show, where it's like magic versus technology. Um, and I feel like it could reveal that Ralph Boner actually was Mephisto the whole time, but his like true form will be a different actor portraying him, because it's already been rumored, not officially revealed, but that Sacha Baron Cohen is gonna play Mephisto in that show. And the besides all the reasons I've already stated in past videos for my WandaVision review and my Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness review, the only other reason why I think Ralph Boner is Mephisto is because so far he's always appeared primarily in episode 6 of the shows that he's been in. WandaVision episode 6 was his like main kind of starring role in that show, and then he showed up in episode 6 of Agatha All Along, to kind of tell Billy kind of what happened. So it would only make sense that he's revealed in episode 6 of Ironheart, or whatever his next appearance is going to be, to kind of form the devil's number of 666. So that would be interesting if that does end up happening. If it doesn't, it's whatever. Like, I'm not going to be crazy about it, but I feel like it makes sense, and there has to be something more to him for him to have these two appearances so far, which are both like pretty small appearances, but it's weird that it's happened twice already. If it's not gonna like lead to something else, and we never got to see Senor Scratchy, the Agatha's bunny, anymore in this show, so there could still be something with that too. I don't exactly know what they'll do, if anything, with that. But he did appear in the beginning of the show when Agatha was still in that home. So we'll see. Maybe he'll go on the adventure with Billy and Ghost Agatha. But I don't think I have anything else to say. So just let me know, what did you think of the show, and what are you looking forward to, in the continuation of this story and this kind of witchy side of the MCU. And when do you think Wanda's gonna return? Is she gonna get her own movie? We'll see. So thank you for joining me. I'll catch you next time. Peace.